ever wonder about the diverse amount of characters in a movie or television show? Or maybe minority representation in a movie or television show? Well, I have. Today I'm going to be talking about minority representation in the visual entertainment industry. I'll cover influences on societal views, influences on minorities themselves, and how appropriate representation can give minorities hope. Before I begin this presentation, I would like to say that I am a minority. I was born handicapped, and for that reason, I understand what it feels like not to be represented in the visual entertainment industry. Growing up, I was not represented, and for that reason, that affected how people viewed me and also how I viewed myself. To begin, the first point that I'd like to discuss is how the visual entertainment industry influences societal views. So, the first piece of evidence comes from the National Research Group. In this study, it shows here that 91% of people believed that the media influenced what they believed, while 77% of people believed that the way Black people are portrayed in media influences how Black people are viewed in real life. Another piece of evidence is the movie Crazy Rich Asians that came out in 2018. This movie showed an all-Asian cast, and people didn't really think it was going to do that well. But it raised $236 million and showed the Asian community in a new light. People loved the movie. Now, the next point I'm going to discuss is how the visual entertainment industry influences minorities themselves. One quote comes from a site called Minds Matter. The quote states, "When children grow up without seeing themselves represented, they may have feelings of not belonging, of being outsiders, and not being equal to others. This only promotes segregation, and that is why mental health in minority communities is particularly difficult." So what this quote is saying is that the visual entertainment industry and a lack of representation influences minority mental health negatively. Another piece of evidence comes from an article titled "Why Representation Matters" by the author Castellini. Now, Castellini explains that in 2011, a longitudinal study with 396 Black and white children of all genders was conducted to unpack whether or not television consumption had an effect on self-esteem. It did. TV made subjects feel good about themselves if those subjects were white boys. So essentially, the minorities that are in this study had a lower self-esteem than that of the white boys. In fact, the white boys had higher self-esteem because they were represented more than the minorities. The last point that I'd like to discuss is how minorities being appropriately represented in the visual entertainment industry can give minorities hope. The first piece of evidence, which is actually an example, comes from the famous actress Lupita Nyong'o. Now, Lupita Nyong'o felt really down about herself whenever she was young. She felt like she couldn't do the things that she wanted to do because she didn't see herself represented in the visual entertainment industry. That was until she saw the movie The Color Purple, which starred Oprah Winfrey and Whoopi Goldberg. Now, this movie influenced Lupita Nyong'o greatly, and that's what led to Lupita Nyong'o becoming a famous actress. Another example comes from Gina Rodriguez. The quote states, "I would look at the screen and think, well, there's no way I can do it because I'm not there." And it's like, as soon as you follow your dreams, you give other people the allowance to follow theirs. Gina Rodriguez didn't have appropriate representation growing up. And for that reason, she decided to become an actress so she could be that representation for minorities like her. And as this presentation comes to a close, I want to discuss what I talked about in this presentation today. Today, I talked about minority representation in the visual entertainment industry. I covered influences on societal views, influences on minorities themselves, and how appropriate representation can give minorities hope. Now, if you're not a minority, you might not care. But based on this information, I ask that you consider how minorities feel. Now, I'll admit that minority representation has come a long way. But until we see a big change in minority representation in the visual entertainment industry, we will not see a big change in society. Thanks for listening.